Welcome everyone. Thank you so much for coming out to our fourth-ish Friday for May. We had to change our dates this month because of some scheduling problems, but we really appreciate you coming out on such a beautiful evening in May. I keep on thinking it's June, but it's actually May. Once again, I'd like to give my warmest thank you to Peely Island Winery for allowing us to use their space. They're very generous with their space. They never charge us to use this facility, so we're very, very grateful for them in allowing us to host the Fourth Friday events, but also our summer show and sale that we have on the lawn outside. So I have a few items of business. So the Art Society of Kingsville, as you know, is a new organization. We're getting our memberships. And so we're hoping in the future that these Fourth Friday events are a way for us to communicate with our members and sort of have a membership meeting. Oh, welcome. So it's a way for us to communicate with you, and so I'd like to get a little bit of our ask business dealt with. So we get bylaws together. So we're hoping to have an AGM probably next spring where we'll bring the bylaws to the membership for ratification. So there's currently a board, and we can operate without the members' approval at this point, but once we get to next year with the bylaws, we will have to have elections for the board, and it'll have to be elected by the membership at large. So this isn't a closed group, and in fact, we're always looking for volunteers. And certainly we're always looking for board members, and in fact we have, just this week, a board member has resigned, so we will have an opening for board members. So if you would like to consider being a board member, or you think of somebody who might make a board member, we really appreciate that. It's not a huge commitment to be a board member. We have monthly meetings, usually I think we're doing it on Tuesday night, and they're very friendly. We go to a local restaurant, and we have a very social time, but we get the business of our board done at that time. Of course, when you're a board member, you're asked to do a lot of volunteering. So it's a board. The board itself doesn't occupy a lot of your time, but we will ask you to volunteer for other things. So please let me know if you're interested in the board. Just remind you that there is wine for sale tonight, so if you'd like to have a glass, just try the new Gewürztraminer Riesling, which is really nice. You're welcome to do so, and there's some pizza slices left over, not left over, but still available if you're interested in watching. Anyway, with that, any questions? I never let allow people to ask questions, so any questions before I start tonight's program? Well, it's my great pleasure to welcome Wendy German to give tonight for us. It's very generous of her to give us her time and her expertise. We've sent out some information on her, but just to remind you that Wendy is a marketing and media specialist, and she has a passion for providing exceptional customer experience specific to arts marketing, and that's why we thought she'd be great for this talk tonight. She has a pretty extensive resume. She's worked at the Detroit Opera House, Art Speak Gallery, tours of Windsor-Essex Island, as well as Blackburn Radio. She's currently the fundraising coordinator for the Canadian Cancer Society, and she volunteers for the Windsor Light Music Theatre with a number of various shows. She's a member of the Arts Council Windsor and Region, which has actually helped us a lot in developing the ASK group, and also we are able to promote our events through them. And she holds a certificate in arts management and a Bachelor of Arts in English, both from the University of Windsor. So help me and welcome you.
I'm going to grab my presentation. Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm really delighted to be here and to share with you some of the tools of the trade that I have seen be very successful for artists, particularly at my time when I worked as a gallery manager at the Art Speak Gallery, and so that's where I got most of my visual arts information and experience from, and it was a ton of fun as well. So I'm going to talk to you about marketing for the artist. So first I'd like to know, what is your philosophy on marketing? Can anybody define it? Do you have any notions of what that means? It's a lot of things.
So, creative process killer.
Creative process killer? That's it? That's okay, I'm done talking now. change that both parties agree on, and it's such a big topic. I'm going to cut to the chase and tell you that we're going to talk about the 4 P's of marketing that you may have heard of, and those 4 P's are place, product, price, and promotion. Okay. So the first thing we'll talk about is product, because that's what you create with your art. So whatever it is that you do, whether you sculpt or whether you do light installations or whether you take photographs and frame them and sell them or make note cards with them, or if you do jewelry or whatever it is that you do, that is the product that is going to be for sale. Do all of you sell your artwork? Are all of you interested in selling your artwork? Okay, great. I'm in the right place. So price with artists is always a really fun topic. A lot of artists will come up with these very advanced formulas for developing their price. And what I am unfortunately here to tell you is that price is what someone is willing to pay for what you have to offer. And so there's always this negotiation about price, and it's an interesting and a tricky thing. And I've seen pieces come in that were beautiful, and typically what happens is when they're that beautiful, the artist doesn't really want to part with them. And so to skin around that, they price them really high, like at $10,000 and higher. The risk is that someone's going to walk in and drop 10 grand and take it. So just be careful when you do that. You would probably be better not to enter those pieces into sale exhibitions. You would be better to just show them. So when you're ready to sell a piece, make sure it's one that you're really willing to part with, and make sure that the price is a fair price, and that it's a saleable price. And if you think of yourself on the other side, if you were shopping for art, this is a price that you would pay. So price is always a sort of a touchy subject, and price is ultimately up to the artist. So a gallery can't tell you typically what you're going to charge. They can tell you how much they're going to take out of that price, but they can't typically tell you what they'll charge. And so the price is always up to you. Okay. So place. Typically, art is sold in a gallery. And that's still something that works out very well today. The Art Speak Gallery that I worked out of Windsor still has shows all the time, and they do quite well. They do 2 member shows as well, so I'm very excited to hear that you do a member show, and I can't wait to come and see it this year. I'm really impressed with your 1,600 people. That's fantastic. I hope you're leveraging that. Because you can. That's a fantastic number. But other places that you can show your art include the mall, or a shopping center, and you'll find that if you're willing to step out of your box a little bit and display your art in interesting and unique places that match your artwork, you might have a lot of success. So for example, if you look around this room, you'll see that there are pictures on the wall, and those pictures are specific to a winery. How about that? So if you can take a look at your work, or at least the work that you're interested in selling, and see if there's something about it that fits. So is it all carousels? Does it all have something to do with industrial buildings? Is there something about it that marries it together? And then once you have that, what is it about your work in particular that is unique? So in marketing, we call that a unique identifier. So for me, my unique identifier is that I like to market. Big deal, so do a ton of people. But I really love to market for the arts. So that's something unique, because not every marketing person has that or feels that way. So I look for venues where I can talk about marketing for the arts, and that's going to be significant to the people that I'm with, and so that's why I'm here. And so you need to do the same thing with your artwork. So if you paint, say you paint pictures that are scenes of children, you might consider going to a library to see if you can have a few of your pieces exhibited during story hour, because that makes a lot of sense. You might see if you can go to some festivals that are specific to children, like the children's games that were held in Windsor, and exhibit your art there, because that makes a lot of sense. People who are interested in your art will be in those areas, and so you want to be looking for target-rich areas to show your wares. Okay, and the other thing that I really love to recommend, and I don't paint, I don't create visual art, but I really enjoy visual art, and I like to buy it and hang it in my house. And something that is I find fascinating, and I find other purchasers of artwork find fascinating as well, is if we go somewhere and there is an artist actually set up painting, this is fascinating. I think it is such a fantastic way to engage people who are interested in what you're doing, because they will stop and talk to you. So if you hate people interrupting you when you're doing your artwork, this may not be the thing for you, but typically speaking, when I go to an art show, if I can talk to the artist, I will. I want to know about the piece. I want to know the story behind it. I want to be able to tell that story when people come into my house. I think that's really neat, and I think it's very interesting. And as humans, we are very curious, and we want to know this stuff. So if you can connect with your audience, I strongly recommend that you do that. There we go. So matching or linking what is unique about your work with a venue for it is probably going to yield you some really good results. And you may be a little bit shy about doing that, and that's okay. I'm frozen here.
I'll take it. You care.
Oh, great. Okay, so when you do start to sell your work, I also recommend that you start something called a database. That doesn't have to be anything on a computer. It can be a file of papers. You want to make sure that you're capturing the customer's name, their phone number. If they have an email and you're email savvy, you want to capture that, because the next time you have a show, you want to invite them. If they purchased your work once, it's likely that they'll purchase it again. And you want a way to communicate with them instead of thinking to yourself, oh gee, what was that lady's name? How that piece? And she will likely want to know when you're exhibiting next. And so I strongly recommend that you take down their information, grab their business card, and send them a save the date when you're ready to do your next exhibition. It is always, always, always easier to keep a customer than to find a new customer. It's about 6 times easier, they say. So, and I found this to be true as well. When someone has established a relationship with you, and they have trust with you, and they like your work, they will go to you because they know how to find you. You know, maybe they already have your phone number or your website. They have your email. They don't want to have to start looking all over. They don't know where to look. There's no artists at their children's school or their children's swimming lessons or their husband's horse, riding stables, where they can find something that's relevant to the person that they're shopping for. So if they have your email and have your phone number and they like your work, they're probably going to call you. Okay, so how do you get to the place where you can do some artwork at the library or at a festival? How do you do that? What you need to do is create a proposal. Has anyone created a proposal? Anybody know what I'm talking about? Okay, so a proposal is a suggestion. Typically when I am ready to make a proposal, I will start with an in-person meeting. So I'll go to the place that I want to work with, and I'll find who's in charge there, a manager or whatever, and I'll introduce myself, and I will bounce my idea off them. Usually this is pretty effective. I can express what it is I want to do. It's typically not your regular media. It's not, buying an ad in a paper or putting a promotion together on the radio. It's usually something unique. So painting, say if we were to do painting at the Tweppy, the Tourism Peely Island Winery, there are several outlets all around Essex County. You might think to yourself, well, I could go and paint there or sculpt there on a Saturday, a busy Saturday, and they are very busy on Saturdays. So then we would go to Tweppy and we would sit, propose our idea. If they're interested, then we would write a formal proposal, and it would have exactly what we're going to do, what our end of the bargain is, what their end of the bargain is, the dates, the times, all of the relevant information. And so this document becomes, a business document becomes a contract, okay? And if you have a written proposal, once you've bounced your idea off and that they seem interested, then that lends credibility and intent, and it really is a business agreement, okay? So for me, this is fun. I love doing this. I love coming up with ideas and pairings and putting them together and going out and seeing if I can get them. And the risk, while it is a risk, it's also fun. And when you get those yeses, those first couple of yeses, it's really exciting. And then you think to yourself, geez, now I gotta go paint. So I recommend when you do approach, if you have an idea brewing and you think that this is something that you might want to do, I recommend that you go in with confidence. If you go in and you're using a lot of passive language, or you're really shy about it, they're going to see that. So make sure that you believe in your idea and that you go in with confidence. So I'm going to move on to promotion. So another one of our 4 Ps. Promotion is also a humongous topic. There's mainly 2 types of promotion. One is publicity and one is advertising. So advertising is where we pay. We pay to get our message out there. So your society, it might consider doing some paid advertising for the art show that it does. Maybe you're going to do something in the Kingsville Reporter. Maybe you're going to consider putting something on the radio station in Leamington. And that's smart. To do paid advertising, when you're the one paying for the advertising, you control every single word. Nobody has any say except for you, because obviously you're paying for it. You can also do internet advertising, which is really up and coming right now. And you can do television, although television tends to be the most expensive, so people tend not to have budgets for that. Obviously some people do, but it would be up to you, and whatever your marketing budget is, you can divide it in any way that you like. But most people tend to go for publicity because publicity is free. And publicity is, it's a little bit of a tricky thing because it can go good or bad. And so we always want to try and control it and make sure that we're getting good publicity, because bad publicity is, again, a whole other topic. And it's tricky to manage bad publicity. So you want to make sure that you're getting good publicity. And in terms of your art, one way to do that, one really effective way to do that, is to have a press release. Has anybody ever done a press release for an exhibition? Good, good, okay, a couple of you. So a press release is a press release. Yeah, it's also called a media release. It's the same thing. Okay, so it's really a written announcement to the media. And it's usually, we recommend you keep it to a page. And a press release has the 5 W's. Who, what, when, where, why, and you should really throw in how. Okay? So if you're going to exhibit in an art show, who are you? What are you exhibiting? Where are you exhibiting it? Why are you exhibiting it? And how do I get there? Is there a fee? Do I have to pay? Can I just go anytime? So you want to make sure that you're answering all those questions in your press release. Okay? And I strongly recommend that you do a press release. They're very simple. They don't cost you anything except your time and your thought process. And if it's a quiet news week, the press releases will get picked up for human interest. Now, if you're sending a press release on Super Bowl week, maybe not. So you want to watch when you're sending them to. Some people will not send them on a Friday. They'll only send them on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and there's a whole science to all of that, okay? So they're very specific. You never want to use it's like a standard, pull out your old press release and change the date. Please don't do that. The media will catch on. They're very smart. They will see that coming a mile away. So you want to customize every single press release to the event that you have. Now, a good press release absolutely has to have 2 things in it, or the media will know that, this is not a professional press release. So the first thing is a hook. Anybody know what I'm talking about? Yeah. If your first sentence does not draw people in, you're done. That's on the newsroom floor next. Because they get 100, when I worked in the media, we would get 100 a day. So it had to be something really catchy in it. I brought a couple of my press releases that I've written. You can have a look at them later if you're interested. But it absolutely has to grab you in and keep you reading. And so as someone who's worked in the media, when we get a press release, we're not just reading the press release for information, we're analyzing how it's written. Are we going to keep reading this? And if you can make us forget that because we're so interested in what you're saying, then you've got us. And that's exactly what you want to do. The other thing that a good press release has to have is a quote from a relevant person. So typically speaking, if I'm writing the press release, I won't give the quote. I'm going to go to another source, so a third-party source, to get that quote. And I'm going to make sure it's somebody really relevant. So hopefully somebody that is well-known in the community, somebody that has some sort of a title, somebody that's recognized. And if you can't do that, that's okay. It doesn't have to be one of those things, but if you can find someone with credibility, so an expert in that field or another artist, you know, maybe you can find a board member who would be willing to give you a good quote. As somebody who writes press releases, I'm going to let you in on a little secret. While I often ask for a quote, I most often give a quote and ask them to edit it, because then I can get them to focus and say what it is that I want them to say. And I try and make it really relatable to that person. You know, you can't just write anything off the cuff. It's got to be relatable. Otherwise, they're going to start changing it around on you, and that takes a lot of time. And you'll be back and forth with approvals and stuff. You just want them to think, oh, this is easy. I totally agree with this. Yes, go. So you have to have a good quote, and you have to have an excellent hook in your press release.
Can I ask a question?
Absolutely.
Okay. In regards to the quote,
Yes.
can you use anything you've read as long as you attach the name of the person who did the quote?
I would not recommend doing that.
Because what if that person has been dead for 2 centuries?
Would not.
Sorry, what's the question?
The question is, can you use a quote from somebody long ago? So like I would never use, I can't think of a time that I would use Shakespeare as a quote. It's got to be a direct quote that is relevant to what you're doing here and now. And if it is.
So as opposed to,
I wouldn't-
sometimes I can choose a quote.
Yeah.
It's a philosophy that you go by.
Yeah.
That would be part of your.
Then that would be that would be okay, and you can say in the press release, a philosophy that this artist adheres to is Shakespeare's da 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 da. But for your actual quote, it has to be a here and now
Supporting
quote
it.
that is relevant today. Absolutely.
So
Yeah.
it's a quote that somebody's giving you support.
Absolutely.
Recommending.
Supporting your theory, or supporting your exhibit, supporting your art. Yes.
And they have to be living?
I've never seen a press release with a past quote. The quotes are always relevant. It would be like if I was applying for a job and I used a cover letter from 20 years ago when I was young. It's not going to go over well because people will catch on that that's an old cover letter. It's not relevant to today's here and now and what's happening. The quote that you use in your press release, it has to be very timely. It has to be specific to you. It has to be specific to what your press release is releasing, to the newsworthiness of that, and that will help create newsworthiness. So if I was writing a book and I was going to put out a press release about my book, I might go back to one of my profs at the university because they know me by name, they sat in class with me, they taught me, they can comment on me. If I were to pick up a quote from Ernest Hemingway, he's gone, that quote is not about me. It's not about me, it's not about my book. It's not attached enough to what the press release is about for it to count.
So keep it personal.
It has to be personal.
So, but you can,
I wouldn't recommend
Is it like
that.
a testimonial from a,
It's kind of like a testimonial from a supporting person.
Like it'd be specific to your work.
It has to be specific to
Like
your work.
if you're a fine detail person in art, as Emily is, that might be something I would pick up.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, but if, for example, if Van Gogh inspires Emily, we can say that. We can say, growing up, Emily has had, prints of Van Gogh's of the iris in her room, and the, purple colors, have influenced her work, da 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 da. Because so-and-so says she is into fine details and etc. Okay? So it has to be, sorry, I don't know if you like Van Gogh. But it has to be very relevant and specific. And it's not to say that you can't pull influence from somewhere, but you can't pull a quote from someone from 100 years ago and say, well, that's my quote, because the media will not be all right with that.
But if you made a quote, you have to research that it hasn't been out there and been said.
Well, that's the other reason, right? So if I'm going to write a book and I'm going to go back to one of my English profs to get a quote, then I know that it's not plagiarized because they just wrote it for me. Or I wrote it for them.
There's a lot of spiritual books that you get out there. And at the beginning, they might have 10 or 12 different other authors that give credit about that particular topic. And that's the same thing you're saying.
It's very supportive.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very supportive and it's very current.
And it's relative to,
Very relevant specifically to the news that we're releasing. Right. Yeah. Okay, any other questions about that? Okay, so keep it brief. Try to keep it to a page. It's okay if it's not a page, if you haven't that much information that you need to give out, that's okay. But try and keep it brief because like I said, media outlets get over 100 of these a day. So you need to be able to be impactful in a short amount of space as you can. And the other thing is, just like cover letters, if there are grammar errors, if there are spelling errors, it's on the floor, okay? Because they will feel that you're not taking it seriously enough to make sure that it's accurate. So make sure that it's ready for print, okay? A couple of times in the work that I do, I tend to do a fair number of press releases, and every once in a while, and particularly in the county, so make sure you remember this. County media outlets are not always as well staffed as larger cities, and so if they're in a pinch, they'll take your press release and you'll see it word for word. And that is what you want. That is excellent because then everything that you want to convey is right there in print in black and white. And so that is, for me, that's the best case scenario. If they just take it and they print it, bada boom, bada bing, I'm in business. Everything I want conveyed is conveyed. And that's why they have to be so well written. They have to have no mistakes because if the reporter prints it and there's an error in it, then he's not going to trust your next press release, okay? And it's going to make him look bad because it's going to look like it's his error when really it was my error, okay?
So what's going to happen when there's no more newspapers?
It'll all go online.
Just online, same thing.
Yeah, it's happening now, actually.
Embrace it.
Yeah, you know, it really stinks. I had a very good friend who worked for the Windsor Star, and he was the community relations person, and that worked out great because I worked for the Canadian Cancer Society, which is also not-for-profit. So as a not-for-profit, anytime you go to a media outlet, you would contact their community relations is who you would deal with. And he got downsized, and they did not replace him. Like, wow.
That's interesting.
Yeah, yes.
I've written some press releases for the Art Society of Kingsville.
Perfect.
And like you said, they print them word for word, so
They do.
I have the same press release printed in the South Point Sun and the Kingsville Report.
That's okay, yeah.
And that's my question. At first, I thought they're both putting in the exact same story, and there's nothing wrong with that.
There's nothing wrong with that, but since you've picked up on it, I would, if you have the time to do it, I would leverage it. So I would send 2 different press releases. And you can try and make them appeal to those communities, to those demographics. So if, for example, you know that, I don't know, one has more women, then you might want to try and appeal to the women. If you're really sure, I mean, you have to be really sure.
There's something I can pick.
But if there's something, it's the same thing, so it's unique identifiers, you're looking for that audience, right? So
They do, although I always send pictures too.
Good idea.
Sometimes one will print some pictures and the other will print different pictures,
Yeah.
which kind of is nice.
Yeah, and I've had it where if I send 2 press releases close together, they'll take part from one and part from one, and they think it's the same story, and then I've got wrong information out there. So I have to be really careful. Yeah.
Well, we're not that prolific.
It just depends on when. Yeah, it just depends on when events run, and if you send those releases out too close together, that can happen. So I'm going to talk a little bit about a press kit. Does anyone know what a press kit is? Anyone made a press kit? Karen has. Okay, awesome. Thank you, Karen. So I'm going to give you an example first because this actually happened last week. As a fundraising coordinator for the Canadian Cancer Society, I look after the 2 Relay for Life events. And it's relay season. We're doing meetings all the time and stuff. And I don't typically invite the press to my meetings. They're for my team captains. We have a lot of fun, but it's not newsworthy. But one of the Daffodil Lottery winners won $1 million from Windsor. So they wanted to do a big check presentation, and that was very newsworthy. And so our office had meetings about how we're going to do this, and we decided to invite the press to this meeting because there was a lot of people there, and they would be able to cheer, and we thought this would be great. Well, the media thought it would be great too. They did 2 live cut-ins for television, so that's fantastic. You don't usually get, TV's hard to get. And so there were all these reporters, and I had all these extra staff people there that aren't normally there, and it was a lot of fun, and there was this really live feeling of energy in the room because my team captains were just like, what is going on? Are all these people here? And so I was trying to help manage that while having the meeting, and one of the reporters came up to me and said, do you have a press kit for this lottery thing? And I said, I don't, because I don't handle the lottery at all, it's not my campaign. And I just thought, note to self, must go make sure, not that I wouldn't, but make sure that I have press kits for my relay, because it's a big relay. There's two and they're both big. And so a media kit is really a canned package of information, accurate information about you that you can hand to the media, especially if there's a lot of media. So if you guys do a big opening, or for example at your show, you may have several media outlets. And so if they're all trying to talk to one of you, that's tricky. It's tricky to manage 3 interviews at once. So if you have a press kit, you can give out your press kit, and it will have accurate information. It's going to have your press release in it. It's going to have your business card in it. If you have any other relevant articles, fairly recent, I would say 6 months, even 6 months to a year is okay. You're going to have that in there. Photographs, if you have any brochures, any relevant information that you have will go into your press kit. And so the same thing will happen. They will take those previous stories and they'll spin them a bit because it's a little bit less work. They're always under the gun for deadlines. They will take pictures that you have. They will take information that you put in there. And sometimes people put a lot of fun information in there. So when I worked at the Detroit Opera House, we had Phantom of the Opera come, which was great fun. And they had, in their press kit, they had Phantom, PH, Phantom, Facts, P-H-A-C-T-S, Phantom Facts. And they just gave all this great information about, how many lights were on the chandelier and what happens, how many of those real lights actually break in a night, and how many feet of rope it takes to hoist that thing up. All this really interesting stuff that if you had tickets to the Phantom, which I did, and I had never seen it before, I was like all over this thing. I was like, this is great. And I can see how the media would pull these facts out for their hook. Very, very smart. So
Can
you
I say something?
Absolutely.
If the press was involved,
Yeah.
and they may not be artists, and they
Probably
may not
not.
like your stuff. Or
They might not.
It might be a negative impact. That might not be a good thing for them to report something because they visually didn't like it, but somebody else would like it. And so that report would be really negative, eh?
So we would call that an art critic. Yeah. And there are ways to manage that as well. A lot of people think that negative press is bad. And in the world of media, we say that all press is good press. Because if you have bad press, then guess what? Someone's going to jump on board and say to you, oh my gosh, you got such a negative review. What do you think of that? So you're going to generally...
What it did for Miley Cyrus.
Well, I don't know if you guys know who Kesha is, but Kesha came to Caesars Windsor, and there was such uproar about her concert that she got press. It made it into like the David Letterman show, or like all of a sudden Windsor was all over the map. So that's a situation where there's some bad press that's used to generate good press. And so if there's ever bad press, hopefully you have a marketing person, whatever happens, call me. And you spin it into good press. Because that's his opinion, right? That's not everybody's opinion, and while he's writing for everybody, he has to keep the general public in mind. So not everybody's gonna have his opinion, right? Yeah, media is tricky. Okay. So a press kit will stand in when you are too busy to handle more than one reporter, and I know that sounds like maybe it's crazy, but it does happen, especially if you're involved in openings or big closing receptions. It tends to happen quite a bit. And also you have friends and family there that you want to talk with, and you're getting pulled away by reporters. So definitely have your press kits ready to go. I brought a sample of a press kit. Oh, I wish I could take credit for this one. This one was not mine, but I did get it from the Detroit Opera House. It was when they did Margaret Garner, and Margaret Garner was an opera that they did there as a world premiere. So they had reporters from all over the world, and it was really just amazing. It was historic, it was significant. And they put, there's their press release, they put in their program, there's some previous articles in here, and I thought this was fantastic. They put in a fun fan. Okay, and it's branded, of course it's branded, full color glossy, really nice. Probably expensive to do however many, hundreds of these that they did. You can see that they didn't use a super expensive folder. It's just a folder that you can get from any, supply store. But I thought this was brilliant for the opera. What a great tie-in. So if there's some way that you can tie in what's specific about your art. So for example, if Peely Island was going to do a press release, maybe they would put like a fun little cork in theirs, or whatever, something, a little wine charm, something like that. So you can have a look at that as well. It's a great sample, probably one of the best that I've seen. Okay, so you have your customer base that you're keeping a database on. You're kind of trying to figure, oh yes?
Sorry, just one more question on the press kit.
Yeah.
Do you ever send the press kit out in advance, or do you just have it for in advance?
I don't, but it's a tactic I would consider. Yeah, for sure. Especially so for example, how many years have you done your art show?
Last year was our first.
So last year was your first?
Yeah.
So since this year is your second, I think that's a great idea. Fantastic idea.
So rather than just a press release, we can put out a press kit, hand delivered or something, or?
Yeah, for sure.
And where does it go? Does it go to Windsor Stars?
Absolutely. Windsor Star, Coach, CTV, for sure the Kingsville Reporter. Harrow News tends to pick up a lot of my stuff for some reason. There's the Rivertown Times. I would go up to Lakeshore as well. Absolutely. And county papers, man, they pick up stuff so much easier than the Windsor, because the Windsor tends to get more. I've done really well with county papers. They're very, very favorable. So with both those groups, with your customers who are kind of specifically like your art that you're nurturing, and also with the media who you need to keep on relatively good terms with because you don't want to have to manage that bad press, hopefully. And the way to do that is to give exceptional customer service. So that means every encounter that you have with them, try and go out of your way to get, if they ask you for a press kit, make sure you've got one. If they ask you for two, make sure you've got two. Can they take one for their friend at work who might be writing the story instead of them? Of course they can, absolutely. And same thing with your customers, right? So I was at an art show and there was this great picture, a painting. It was navy blue and it had a bridge. And I don't know if the artist intended for it to look like the Ambassador Bridge or not, but I couldn't help but think of the Ambassador Bridge as soon as I saw it. And I thought, I gotta have this piece. And her name was on it, but there was no price. I was like, oh no, is that a bad sign? Is it expensive? So I went to the executive director of that gallery and I said, I'm really interested in that piece there. Can you please contact the artist and let her know? What artist doesn't want that happening? She never called me. I never got a price. I've never seen the piece again. Even if I saw it, I would seriously go up to her and say, is it not for sale? Please put a sign up if your art is not for sale, if it's on for exhibit only, especially if it's at an art show that is a known sale, okay? It's frustrating. I'm really picky and I love that piece. On the other hand, I bought pieces that I have and I love and I have the story behind it. This year at Christmas, there was a little note card. It was $20 for this note card. I thought, I'm not using that as a note card. I'm going to frame it and put it up, and it's up. It's called the Sugar Plum Fairy. I'm a trained dancer. You had me at Sugar Plum. And I love this. So and it was a small gallery that I was in, so it was on the wall, and I was like, oh, I should look at it. I should look at everything before I decide. I was like, okay, I'm going to look at everything. So I went around. The whole time I was like, I was like, I can't tell you, I gotta go get it. So I went and I got it, and then I held it in my hand, and then I went around. So evil. And not every gallery will let you do that either. Like, you can't touch the stuff, they'll just put a little sticker there that says sold, right? So when I went to buy it, they said, oh, that artist is here. And I said, is she really? So I went and talked with her, and I found out her sister was a ballerina, and that's why she did it. And I love telling the story. I love this piece of art. It's hanging in my house. I couldn't be happier. So I will look for her art the next time I go to that gallery because I know she exhibits there. And those are the experiences that you want. And so when I think back on that, what a great experience it was. I went out that night, I had such a nice night, I got this piece of art, I still have the art, I see it every day. And I think of this woman's sister dancing in the ballet, and I love that, but that she cared about her sister enough to put that in her artwork, and that's fantastic for me. Yes?
You do a quote for her present.
I would be perfect to do a quote.
Yes.
Exactly. Yes.
I was
feel like that it's not such a good idea to put things in shows that aren't for sale.
I couldn't agree with you more.
It's a downer to me, and I've seen it in this area, but I haven't seen it in other places.
Yeah, I mean, for me, if it's an exhibition that is not a sale, that's fine. I mean, if you go to the Art Gallery of Windsor, not much of that is for sale, almost none of it.
Yeah.
So I know that, I
Right.
expect that, my expectations are set, I'm fine.
Right.
But if I'm going into an art show and sale,
Or
and
like
there's,
even our show on the lawn this summer. Yeah.
please put a sign up, because I'm gonna love your piece.
So I have a question.
Yeah.
If you're just saying about this memory thing that
Yeah.
you connected with this picture,
Yeah.
do you think people should name the art piece and have a story behind every one?
I think it has to be genuine. So if you painted it because you
But
felt like.
should you name your paintings like
There's a,
Whatever,
that's an
whatever.
opinion question. My opinion is yes, but that's because I took English, and in English, man, they want you to title stuff, and so I've grown used to that. Other people would say, no, you shouldn't title it, you should leave it open to interpretation, because it may speak to that person. Like, this woman just happened to get it with me, like, my kids grew up with me reading them the Nutcracker, the poor things. So, to name it a character out of that book, I mean, my kids even would have known, Mom was gonna love that, because they know me. If she'd have named it something else, I don't know if I would have connected to it. I probably would have,
So
but,
that's not name it.
well, again, it's really just an opinion thing. So my opinion is that I think you should name it, but not everybody will agree with me, right? Like, who am I?
But you limit yourself then by naming it.
You can,
Because you just get a certain person, right?
you can, yeah.
Well, I don't think you're gonna get a group based on what the title is.
Well, if it's
They're
a
gonna
kid
look at
thing,
the
the name, the kid.
And the price, please put the. Yeah, so, you put a lot of energy into your artwork. You put a lot of time, you put a lot of patience, you put a lot of thought. Make sure that you're putting that much effort into the business side of it, into the marketing of it, and into marketing and branding yourself as well. It's really important, that artist, I don't remember her name, but I know that I can go and unframe that picture and it's on the back because I saved it. And that's important to me. I like her work. I can tell you more stories of art that I've bought that's spoken to me. That's just probably the most recent piece. And that's what you want. You want to find those people, who are going to love your art. And so not just putting all that effort into the production of the piece for the final product, but putting that much effort into the marketing of it and into the marketing of yourselves. And it's really a great investment. Okay, well, that's all that I have. I did bring some samples of press releases, and I have a meeting kit if you want to have a look at it. I'm available for questions if you have any. I'd love to stay and chat with you, so you let me know.
Have any questions for Wendy?
The business plan you talked about, the accountant did the answer.
Oh, good, I like that. That's good.
Is there a template? Is there something somewhere on the interweb that people can look up?
You probably could look up a template. It might not be a bad place to start. My personal opinion is that I would customize it.
Well, of course, yes, you would customize it, but
Yeah.
generally artists are artists.
Or not business people, that's right.
It's a business people term.
Yeah. Yes?
I just had another question about publicity.
Yeah.
Because you were talking about television, and we've gotten like publicity on the radio because we can get it for free.
Yeah.
We've gotten newspapers and all that, but I never thought about TV. And I would think we should be able to. I've thought of it before. Is
I
there,
can
any,
make some phone calls.
is there anything special we need to do if we're trying to cater to?
Money.
Well, for news, you can get over for the news.
Think of it as
When they give the channels, there's always advertising on there, events going around.
Or you make it fun, you get arms boom leg over.
Actual coverage, like a reporter.
If you get
comes to
like
our-
arms boom leg to come to the event as like a little, like a fun event type thing. So
If it's just slow
Invitations out to those people.
All you can do is
that
ask.
to the industry to invite them, and guess what?
No,
You
but
get it for free.
I'm just asking if there's any special way we can cater.
I think we have a press kit.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
sounds
Yeah,
good.
a press kit for sure, but you can do, like, Plugged In is local, if you can get onto Plugged In and talk about your art show, that's fantastic. And again, put yourself in the role of the TV people, right? So they want to reach a large market, and you have a lot of people coming to this event. Where's the sweet spot that you get married in, and it works for you and it works for them, because that's where you're appealing.
And what's plugged in? I'm sorry, I don't
It's just a local show with Melanie DeVoe. It's like a half hour. She always seems, and it's not all not for profit. So I've done that show for Relay for Life. And,
Oh, okay.
yeah, you get a chance to talk about your stuff, and there's no charge. They invite you. It's fantastic. Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks. You're welcome.
Any other questions? Well, so a couple things. We still are accepting your applications if you wanted to tonight. We'll give you sort of maybe a 10-minute break to fill that out, and then we'll have the draw for the fabulous prize. So we made a decision as a board that even though we all renewed our membership, that we wouldn't be putting our names in for the draw. So.
So you get a better chance.
So you get a better chance. I, for example, will not be able to hang that in my house, and you will be able to hang it into your house if you're successful. Anyway, I'd like to thank you, Wendy, for coming out and giving this very informative presentation. I hope everyone enjoyed it as much as I did. It was very thorough. And so in keeping with our local, this is an Ontario one.
It's bought in this building.
It's bought in this building, and also a gift from one of our local restaurants. So that way you will come back to the
I will come back.
It's very much appreciated.
Buy some art and
Yeah, right.
That's part of your show.
And we look forward to seeing you in July.
Absolutely. I will be here in July.
So we'll have a story to tell.
Come to your show.
Oh, she's gonna come to our show. So anyway, feel free to mingle. We have the facility till 9 o'clock, so there's but anyway, in 10 minutes we'll do the draw.